The activity being addressed in this movement analysis is dog grooming, which falls under the IADL of care of pets and animals in the OTPF4. The specific task we are focusing on in this video involves brushing the fur of my dog, Finn. Because he loves to spend time playing outside, my mom brushes him 3 to 4 times a week in an effort to maintain his cleanliness and keep him safe from ticks. Here, you can see my mom in the stance phase, which involves a relatively static state of balance as the individual prepares to begin the task. You can see that she has positioned herself in front of the bench so she can monitor the dog's movement as she prepares to begin brushing. In this position, the shoulders of both extremities are at rest, but the scapula is retracted as demonstrated by the position of the acromion posterior to the ear. The elbows are slightly flexed due to the natural carrying angle that results from cubitus valgus, and both forearms are pronated. The wrists are slightly extended, which is the functional position of the wrist, and they show some radial deviation. The MP joints of both thumbs are flexed, and the IP joints are hyperextended, but the right thumb exhibits partial radial abduction at the CMC, whereas the left thumb is slightly palmarly abducted. The MP joints of digits 2 through 5 are flexed and in resting adduction, and the PIP and DIP joints are flexed. This may result from tenodesis due to the slight extension of the wrist. The lower extremities have both knees flexed, and the ankle joints are in plantar flexion in this position of static balance. At the end of the phase, my mom's cervical spine rotates to the left to check on the dog before she prepares to reach for his collar and the brush in the preparatory phase. Second is the preparatory phase, which is also known as the wind-up, as muscles prepare to generate force that is utilized in the movement phase. In this task, the preparatory phase is my mom reaching for Finn's collar and brush and grasping both of these objects. Starting with the right upper extremity, the elbow flexes until the hand is superior to the bench, and flexion of the shoulder joint leads to extension of the elbow to reach for the brush. The shoulder also exhibits some internal rotation to align the hand with the brush handle. The forearm is primarily pronated to full range, but supinates very slightly to prepare for grasp. The wrist extends and ulnarly deviates, the extension helping to prevent passive insufficiency of the digit flexors once they are used to grasp the brush. While reaching for the brush, the MP joints of digits 2 through 5 extend and adduct, but the PIP and DIP joints remain slightly flexed. All 3 of these joints flex to grasp the brush, and the MP joints abduct. The CMC joint of the thumb palmarly abducts to allow the thumb to move under the brush handle, then adducts to grasp it in synchrony with flexion at the MP and IP joints. The left upper extremity, which grasps the collar, begins with simultaneous shoulder and elbow flexion until the hand is parallel with the collar. The shoulder again internally rotates slightly to accommodate the medial position of the collar. Both arms are adducted, and the scapula protracts in both extremities to assist with the reaching motion. The forearm supinates prior to grasping the collar, then pronates once the MP, PIP, and DIP joints are flexed to form a composite fist to hold the collar. The wrist extends in the majority of the phase, then flexes and ulnarly deviates to full range when grasping the collar. Again, the CMC palmarly abducts when reaching, but adducts once the MP and IP joints are flexed. You can see further flexion of the MP, PIP, and DIP joints of digits 2 through 5 at the very end of the preparatory phase, demonstrating the characteristic wind-up as my mom prepares to lift the grooming brush against gravity by generating force in the hand. The movement phase constitutes the main action that is associated with the functional task. In this case, the brushing strokes require the greatest range of motion and acceleration to successfully eliminate any knots, dirt, or leaves in the dog's fur. In this task, the movement phase is broken up into 2 parts, lifting the brush up to the dog's fur and completing the brush stroke down his back. With regards to the right upper extremity, the shoulder flexes, horizontally adducts, and internally rotates, crossing the forearm past midline to start the brush stroke at Finn's neck. The scapula reaches its greatest range of protraction in the task as the arm reaches the dog's neck. The elbow also flexes while lifting the brush to prevent hitting the dog. The wrist extends and radially deviates prior to the brush stroke, but once the brush is moving down the length of Finn's vertebral column, the wrist flexes and ulnarly deviates to full range. The elbow extends during the brushstroke, which is accompanied by extension, abduction, external rotation, and horizontal abduction of the shoulder, and the forearm supinates as the brushing motion is assisted by gravity. During the brushstroke, the MP, PIP, and DIP joints of digits 2 through 5 remain flexed, with the index finger demonstrating the smallest range of flexion due to its role in stabilizing the neck of the brush. The CMC of the thumb is isometrically palmarly adducting to maintain the grasp on the brush, and the MP joint is flexed, while the IP joint is hyperextended. The left upper extremity closely resembles its position at the end of the preparatory phase, the shoulder joint remaining flexed, adducted, and internally rotated, and the elbow joint also flexed. The forearm is pronated near full range, with the wrist flexed and ulnarly deviated. Because this position of the wrist does not promote strength in the digit flexors, this position might instead involve extension if Finn was attempting to pull away. Wrist extension would promote strength in the digits grasping his collar, which remain flexed at the MP, PIP, and DIP joints. The thumb is flexed at both the MP and IP joints, and similar to the right hand, the CMC joint is palmarly adducting to maintain control of the collar. All of the muscles contributing to these joint movements are isometrically contracting at this point. My mom also rotates her neck during her brush strokes to allow her eyes to track where the brush is in relation to Finn's body, making sure to brush through any tangles located along the way. Control and strength in the pectoralis major and posterior deltoid is very important during this phase. These are the prime movers of horizontal adduction and horizontal abduction, and it is important that both muscles are strong as agonists and antagonists in order to slowly move the brush across the dog's fur and overcome the resistance of various knots. The follow-through phase is known as the deceleration component of the task as the joints prepare to stop their movement. While brushing Finn, this phase involves placing the brush back onto the bench. The most notable movements in this phase involve the shoulder and the elbow. While lifting the brush off of Finn's fur, the shoulder extends while the elbow flexes to lift the brush in a superior and posterior manner. The shoulder abducts, flexes, and internally rotates as the brush is placed on the table, and the elbow extends until the brush makes contact with the bench. After supinating to a neutral position when separating the brush and the fur, the forearm fully pronates to place the brush flat. The wrist extends and radially deviates to prevent active insufficiency of the digit extensors when they release the brush in the recovery phase. In the left upper extremity, the end of the follow-through phase involves extension at the MP, PIP, and DIP joints of digits 2 through 5 as they prepare to release their grasp on the collar. The cervical spine rotates to midline to track the position of the brush on the bench, and the vertebral column returns to a neutral vertical position by laterally flexing to the left. The recovery phase allows the individual to stop the movement and prepare for the start of another task. In this case, the recovery phase is essentially returning to the stance position. The shoulders of both extremities extend and adduct to return the arm to a rested position assisted by gravity, and the elbows extend to their resting carrying angle. All of the fingers release their grasp through extension, but then flex slightly to accompany wrist extension once the hands are resting on her thighs. My mom also rotates her head to the left one more time, again checking on my dog to be sure that he is comfortable. Once this motion has reached a stopping point, my mom is ready to begin another task, whether that includes brushing the dog's teeth, rewarding him with a treat, or beginning a task associated with a different occupation.